Hi, everybody. Welcome to Association Rockstars, where we hear about the journey and insights of amazing nonprofit and association executives and partners who are building the association industry of tomorrow. I'm your host, Lowell Aplebaum, CEO of Vista, Cova, where we provide facilitation services to nonprofits and associations. I'm so happy that you're joining us here at the end of the year, where we have a panel of brilliant there we go. There's our last one coming back. Panel of brilliant rock stars that we've had from throughout 2023 to share with you some year-end and looking forward into year-ahead insights. I'm so happy to have with us today Nabila Gharouri. I'm going to try to do it in alphabetical. Nabila Gharouri, Hassana Howe, Joseph Jones, Dana Coley, and Rodnika Scott. And I thought rather than read bios, I'll ask each of them. We'll go around for a quick introduction. And as you are introducing yourself, if you'd please give us a sentence or two as you reflect on 2023, what do you think is a key leadership quality that nonprofit executives have needed this past year to really thrive? Nabil, we'll start with you.
So I'm Nabila Gharouri, psychologist and principal at Executive Therapy and Consulting, a new firm I started this year, where I'm doing psychotherapy with executives and leaders virtually, and talking to associations and nonprofits about mental health. And so my key thing for 2023, what executives need, I would say, is resilience. For this year and for the last 4 years, we've really needed to be able to go with the flow, adjust on many circumstances. And so I think resilience is a key theme for me in 2023.
Excellent. Welcome. Hassana.
Thank you. So Hassana here, the Chief Experience and Engagement Officer, or CXO for short, at the American Physical Society, where we represent 50,000 physicists around the world. Excited to be here today alongside all these rockstar panelists. And I would say for next year, a key thing for leadership is listening. And I think it ties into what Nabil was saying is, mental health is a thing for everyone, especially in this virtual world. And, I want to listen more than speak. And one of the things I did as I joined this organization 9 months ago was do a listening tour and just check in with people. And you don't always get those cues when you're virtual as you would in person. And I think that ties into leading with empathy, servant leadership, and so if I were to say one thing I'm going to concentrate more on is listening for next year.
Perfect. Joseph.
I'm Joseph Jones. I'm the Chief of Staff at Des Moines University, which is a medical and health sciences university in Des Moines, Iowa. And I would say that the thing that leaders have needed over this past year has been flexibility and developing a level of comfort in uncertainty. Or with uncertainty. So it definitely goes along with what Nabil and Hassana had to say as well. But I think that that's been really a key part to making it to December 19th, 2023.
Perfect. Dana?
Yes. Hi, I am Dana Coley. I'm the Director of Client Partnerships at Delcor and heading up business development efforts and ongoing partnerships and just ensuring that we stay ahead of the curve and deliver the best service to our partners. And so one thing that I think is really, it's interesting how everyone's already brought things to the table that are all people skills. I'm going to add to that mix. I think the one thing that's super important to be super important to be successful in 23 and will continue to evolve that way is communication. With being virtual and having no hallway chatter and just other ways to hear information, see information, you have to be very intentional about over communicating. And making sure that everybody's on the same page and on the same team together working toward the same goal. So that's my thing.
Perfect. And we're going to come back to that as a follow-up question. And Rodnika.
Hello, everyone. I am Rodnika Scott. I'm with the National Society of Professional Engineers. We represent roughly 22,000 professional engineers, and we are multidisciplinary. We are a federation. When I'm thinking about how this year blends into the next, I would agree with everyone from communications to well-being focused leadership, like really having your staff's back and making sure that you're transparent and focused on that well-being. But it's a word that has come up throughout my career that I believe will continue to push us into 2024, and that's trust. Getting to a point where we can trust our leaders, we can trust our teams, and like really just gel and know that however we're moving forward together, and we have each other's back. And so we're really building on that team environment through everything that we've mentioned, which I feel like just comes down to trust.
I love that. You know, I appreciate the both the soft skills, and although I often hear Simon Sinek say we should not call them soft skills because they're not soft, but EQ focused skills, if you will, as well as technical skills, places to build. I'm tempted to go to team trust and communication, so we'll play in that space. You know, as we reflect on the year that has been, where have you seen that our nonprofits and our organizations have tried to cut through the noise of communication, right? Where have our leaders, there's so much happening all the time. Where have you tried to make sure that either your voice as a leader or leaders that you've observed have taken some different approaches to communications to actually help people hear each other, or for leaders to hear those that they are serving?
I think in my space, being a relatively new to my organization, I'm going to start my 8th month next week in this space. How I've worked to establish a space of trust and a truly safe space has been to provide multiple channels and where people can communicate. You can't just expect that in a meeting that some people are going to be as quick on their feet to ask questions or to give feedback. If you see someone who's a little bit more vocal, hanging back, I've, circled back, in a few hours and say, hey, just wanted to make sure that we've, gotten that you were able to share all of your viewpoints in that space. And if there's someone who tends to be more vocal and may feel like they're not always heard because they're more vocal, being able to help them frame that so that they can be heard by their peers, and really, again, creating that open space. I think it's something that we all work at and continue to do.
And I think to build on what you said, Rodnika, to build that trust, transparency is really critical for that. So understanding and making sure that part of your communication is the why. Like, what is it? Why are we all working towards this goal? Like, and not just rather a directive. Just to make sure that people understand what their role is in it, and so that that trust can build. Everybody, of course, wants to know where they're going, and no one wants to be upheaved by having something brought to them without understanding the why. So I think that's just to build on what you said. I think that's a really important part of it too. Transparency.
You know, building a space for trust and the why. These feel like sort of lessons in leadership, if you will. As we look to heading into the mid 2020s, do you think how leaders lead, like how they succeed, has changed at all from a few years ago? Do you think there's any different premise to how a leader has to function or have a perspective? Hassan, I saw your head nodding, so I'm gonna see if you have a thought there.
Yeah, I mean, I also joined an organization 9 months ago, and I appreciate the feedback that was just shared. But I think we live in a competitive space, and to be able to recruit and retain top talent, I think it's really important that you invest in your human capital, and that's top of mind. And so to build on what they were saying about communication, what's in it for them? And I think it's everybody's job. A lot of times they think, oh, this is the comms team's job, but we really all play a role. And I think a skill that leaders are adopting now is facilitation. And I know you're the pro, and sometimes we hire consultants for different strategic reasons. But I think the more we can become better facilitators and lead by example, that's something I want to strengthen and lead. And to someone else's point earlier, you're not going to you have to curate meetings, like maybe they're small, so introverts can have a voice more than, if you have a team of 100 people, the introverts are not going to raise their hand, but you do have to create different channels, like you said. And one exercise I learned recently at a meeting, we have a staff retreat where we invite all staff, and it's called Gravitate, which I think it's really interesting idea where we can connect people in person. But we learned a trick where you have everybody write down their ideas with a prompt. Then they pass it along to the next person, and you're showing you're giving the space for introverts to share their ideas. And instead of having the loud voices present their ideas, you we counted all of them at the end, and it was 40 Dias instead of the 2 or 3 dominant voices. And so we showed that as an example. This is how you can introduce new ideas in your meetings, or you can have smaller focus meetings. And so I think being a better facilitator is something that we all should continuously work on and personalize depending on your team, and figure out where are they, because we're often making assumptions about each other of maybe they're not an introvert. People would normally assume that I'm an extrovert, but I really am an introvert. I'm analytical by nature. I need to think things through. I over time develop that skill to present myself that way because I need to in my role. But really learning that and perfecting those skills, I think, is a good starting point.
Others critical leadership qualities that you see leaders really exhibiting that's a little bit different than the past?
I think taking a global viewpoint on more things, or at least consuming a lot more information as they make their decisions, and keeping more things in mind than just maybe the bottom line or just maybe recruitment, and thinking about things more in a larger context. I think that's become a skill that's important to those organizations that want to grow, and that focus on being diverse and focus on having a good positive culture. And I think that flexibility, or at least that ability to kind of move out of some of the traditional mindsets of looking at things, has been helpful in a place where we're all competing for talent, and when organizations are competing for, top leaders and other things, to make sure that you are, keeping many things in mind as you are doing your work, and not just maybe your specific lane.
Any other leadership qualities anyone wants to identify?
I would err on the side of actually saying this, but just listening to everyone made me think of someone on my team. Of course, I have a blazer on today, but what a colleague shared was that you came into the space and you let me know that it was okay to be me and to just relax. It's okay, just relax. And I said, well, how did I do that? Because I wasn't aware that I was doing that. Glad that I did it. But it's just like, we're on meetings, and she's like, I realized you wore a t-shirt, and traditional culture, and to show that you can just relax, be yourself. And what I noticed, I didn't realize what it was attributed to, but there were several colleagues who would never show their face, or their camera was always mid-level, so you really could not see them, but they started opening more and just saying that it helped give them the freedom to be their self and to show up in a space as their self. And what I've seen is that they're contributing a lot more vocally in that space because they're comfortable. So I would say just being able to relax and showing who you are versus the facade of what you should be as a leader.
You made me think of another quality that I think is, it's definitely how I lead, is I think certainly by humor. Everybody, we spend more time at our workplace than we do outside of it, and everybody wants to enjoy themselves and be part of it. And so, having the freedom to bring humor into conversations and make people enjoy themselves breaks everybody's walls down, and helps you be a little bit more relatable, and it helps everyone open up and feel and share more things that they may not be doing if they didn't feel that sense of safety. And I think humor is a great bridge to do that.
Love that. That I want to go back just one step. The ideal of authenticity and bringing that to the workplace as a leader. I want to just get your thoughts on that as a frame, right? There are organizations and companies that say we want you to bring your authentic self. Some that mean it, some that say it and don't mean it, some that mean that we want you to bring part of your authentic self, but not really your whole authentic self. Just as you think about sort of this moment of time, and there's been multiple mentions about getting top talent and then finding like right fit employees. I was wondering how you view authenticity as essential to the workplace, and what you think it actually means for nonprofits in terms of the employees.
I think that's the word I was thinking about as Rodnika and Dana were talking, was authenticity. And I think it's really critical in believing your leaders and for staff to believe you. And so like I'll speak for myself. I tend to talk very fast, and I tend to make a lot of jokes. I usually bad puns, but I make a lot of jokes. And so my staff used to groan, and that's reinforcing to me. So I'm like, yeah, bring it. And when I would slow down how I talk to a more measured style, it actually didn't feel authentic to me. Like people read that as, what's going on? Why is he being cautious? And so given that I speak fast, I need to speak fast when I'm talking to my teams. That's how they know that I'm being authentic, I'm being real. And I think it varies from person to person, right? That doesn't, I by nature am very quick in my thinking. So that's my style.
Others' viewpoints on authenticity in the workplace?
I'll just second everything Nabil said. I totally agree. And I think part of that too is when you lead with your authentic self and just let it out and don't be too cautious about every single word that you're saying. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to say things that you might take back or say it the wrong way, or just not take back in a negative way, but just, oh, I didn't really mean it that way. Actually, what I meant was this. And that helps people, again, kind of break their barriers down and be their authentic selves. And that's how what you need your team to be fully engaged and work together in the right direction.
I'm wondering where your thoughts are in terms of creating leaders' responsibility to create culture for their team in a place where it feels like the dynamics of work from home, work in office, work, like there's some still shifting dynamics there. Have you seen over this past year any great examples of how leaders have built right team and trust, or any examples, clearly not from your organizations, of where that has not gone well, right? Where trust has been lost or broken because leaders didn't do it well?
So one example that I can share, and this is a very minor example, however, we are remote first at our organization, meaning most people actually do work from home all week. A few of us, the people that we come in once a week and just connect. During those times, not only do we try not to fill up the day with just meetings, but some of our meetings, while the weather's nice, we'll go and do the walking meeting. And then we're more so walking because we need to get our steps in, and we're competitive in that space. But in other spaces, we have colleagues that, for a variety of reasons, can't be in the office and don't want to come back in the office at this space and time. So instead of saying, we can't have a end of the year or a celebratory lunch for our particular team, or we can't welcome new individuals on board. What we've done is we do a Zoom meeting. We give all the staff Grubhub or DoorDash gift cards. Order your favorite lunch. We have time set aside. Turn your phones off, turn everything off. There's a no work talk time, and we just engage and have fun. And it helps you get to know the individual. And this also made me think of the word that I've heard used associated with those soft skills. It's a phrase actually called power skills, because that's what's going to set you aside from all the other great leaders out there.
I like that. It's a good one. Power skills. I'm going to use that.
Agreed.
It's a better way.
Power skills. I like it. Maybe I'm going to start with you for this one because I know this is what you talk about, but I'm going to ask others to chime in. I've yet to talk to an executive or a partner that has not reaching the end of the year saying how tired they are.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you know,
Yes.
whether this is the adrenaline that coursed through your veins for 2021, part of 22, as you just dealt with the crisis that was a pandemic, to now the, you know, what happens once you get past crisis, the exhaustion of what comes afterwards. Wondering what your thoughts are for staff, but particularly for executives about mental health. Like where is that today, and what's going to build a stronger mental health mindset for the year to come? You know, we have what, a few days before the end of the year when we're recording this, right? What's the intention that has to be set, or the actions? I'm going to start with Nabil because this is where he starts with, but then love others to chime in too.
I mean, this is my wheelhouse, right? I'm a psychologist and I talk about mental health to as many associations as I can. I think that what leaders need to do is model appropriate mental health and wellness behaviors, and sharing what they are doing is a very big deal. So in the beginning of the pandemic, I was recording videos for my team. At that time, I was actually doing it daily, like a 1-minute video every day, because to me it was replicating me walking around the building, talking to people, saying hi, and I would share like fears that I had to normalize them. You know, the anxiety. Remember way back in April 2020 when everyone had cooties and you didn't want to leave your house, and we were trying to figure out how to get toilet paper. But I think modeling that kind of like talking about it is really important. And then I think second is know the pace that you can actually sustain for the long haul. There's a story I know, the Olympic athlete Carl Lewis, who was from 1984. He won the 4x100, or he won the 100-meter and 3 other gold medals that year. And his secret was he ran 85% for 100 meters. He ran at 85% pace. You could see this. It's published in articles about him. And so I'm sure that someone's going to fact check me. Feel free to. And what he did was he would be about 5th place at 20 meters. He'd be catching up at 50, and by 60 he'd be in the lead. And this is because everyone else was running 100%, and they couldn't sustain that for 11 seconds. And he could run 85% the whole time, steady, and he could win a gold medal. He was the fastest man in the world at the time. He was the Usain Bolt of that era. That is by knowing what pace you can sustain for the short and for the long haul. And that is what we need as leaders. We can't we can't sprint a marathon. And if you're having trouble with things like that, then come talk to me. We'll set an appointment.
Yeah. Joseph, I know that you work in a different space than the association space. Are you seeing similar from your colleagues in the space in terms of either tired, resilience, mental health?
And we work with the population, med students who are in a fairly stressful environment, and so that's just by nature, without a pandemic and other things. But I think, to Nabil's point, it's really important that the leaders model the way, and that they do talk about these things, and the fact that we're all affected in some way or another at some level throughout our week and our day. And I'm really blessed that my boss is a clinical psychologist. So she definitely leads with that in mind. We built a whole new medical school campus that we just moved into this year, and still encouraging the same things that we encouraged before, but now it's even more obvious. There's meditation rooms throughout the campus. There's wellness rooms throughout the campus. There's varieties of food. There's a 2-mile outdoor walking, trail. There's many different ways for people to kind of express what they need and to be able to access it and then put it to work. I personally meditate twice a day, and it's not frowned upon, and it's kind of it's a natural thing where someone sees me walking toward the meditation room, like, I'll be back, and I think everyone embraces or encourages each other's ways of approaching their own mental health and support that.
Anyone else have any reflections on this? So I would love to know what your thoughts are. For each of us, a journey of learning and growth usually has some unique stops we want to make along the way. Where do we want to see with intention by the time we get to the end of next year where we have grown or what we have learned? So I'd love to hear from all of you, most of you, as you think about the year ahead, right? What do you see, or what are you hoping to focus on as a place of learning and growth in your own self? Certainly professional, personal, if you like. I'll say I just finished up a degree, and so I'm in this interesting place of like, while you're in the formal learning mindset of like, do I jump into another formal learning because I'm there, because I know once you lose it, it's hard to come back to it, but also taking a breather from it and maybe having a little bit of fun learning. And so interested to hear from each of you. What do you see in the year ahead as what you want to be your own focus of where you're going to learn or how you're going to try to grow and
I can kick us off. I was already learning just by joining this call, and I liked the discussion just recently on mental health. And, I think that's a space where I personally want to grow and learn and learn about the techniques on how to be a better advocate, or, have courageous leadership, or be more vulnerable. And, I've heard some ideas as well about how can you be your authentic self. And that resonates with me because on my listening tour, I've gotten feedback like that, both for myself or others, that when you just bring your human to work and you show yourself and, different things that make you, not everybody sees that. So the ones who do have that close time with you get you. And so, oh, this is Hasana because XYZ, but not everybody's getting that FaceTime with me. So I learned some things just during this call. And I think, I follow all of these leaders here. And one of the things I do, my trick is take note and create my, what I call my personal board, or my cabinet of experts in the field. So I know with Nabil, he's an expert in mental health. So I probably will reach out to him and learn more and what can I do? Because I know that's a topic that's top of mind just for the staff at APS, but also our member community, because we serve academia as well in most of our membership. So I know that's something very important. I think even for the next generation, that's the generation we're trying to grow our communities in is very important. So for me, I want to learn more about how can I be a better leader in that space, model good behavior, and continue the things I'm doing well, and what am I not doing well, and where am I making missteps. So that's what I'm going to focus on next year. So thank you for inspiring me, everyone on this call.
I'm going to go around. You can say pass if you don't want to go. Dana, do you want to share what you're looking at?
Yeah. Well, Asana, I'm so glad you said that, because that's actually where I was headed in where do I need to kind of focus my energies. It's really about like finding my own boundaries and doing things for me, and making sure that I take that time to do so. And that's a hard thing to do when you're in when you lead people and you want to encourage people, and you're just, it's all about making sure you're enabling others to do really well. It's hard to stop and take a step back and be like, oh, I need to do this for me. So that's definitely where I also will be reaching out to you, Nabil, for some guidance. Yes, it's just more about just really thinking about, now that we're in this, it's been multiple years since COVID, and that things aren't going back anywhere. And I think we all have been very clear on that for a while now. But the pace of like day-to-day life is not slowing down either. So how do we, moving forward, and especially I have a 14-year-old, and I want to model good behavior for her as well, and make sure I, cut it off at times, when there's supposed to be family, all the things that happen with just being a leader, whether it be personal or professional, about taking care of yourself first, oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your next door neighbor.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a slide in my talk. That's a slide in my talk, because it is the classic example. I've set really good boundaries because I am off for the rest of the year. So this is the first time I've ever taken this much time off. And so I'm really excited to take two weeks off. It's going to be really fun. So my goal for next year, my personal goal is I want to verbalize it here, so now I have to do it. I want to write a book. I want to write my book on
Like that.
on managing stress, and so that's the goal. And so I have the outline in my head, and I might spend a little bit of time working on it as I am on vacation for the next 2 weeks, and then hopefully I'll build time in next year to do that. But I actually am doing really well taking care of my stress. I'm the least stressed I've been in a decade. I love it.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's great.
Wow.
And I think you have the starters first book club right here.
Yes.
So that'd be great.
We're all going to wait in line to purchase your book. Support you.
Sure.
Radhika?
So I really echo what I've heard today, you know, and thinking and sitting in the intersection of wife, mother, sister, daughter, coach, caregiver. It's a lot. And I haven't even mentioned that I work full time. I have a full-time job on top of that. So who knows, Neville, you might be really busy in 2024. But when I think of that, and when I think about how I'm trying to be intentional for the next year, I have already started scheduling time for sacred rest, meaning that it's not just rest from work, but rest from all of the things that pull my attention away. And when you're at the intersection of so many different spaces, sometimes you forget a little bit about, you know, what does Renika like? Not Renika the mom or Renika the wife. What do I just like to do when there aren't any other contingencies like that pulling upon me? So I've really been working on getting a 12-month plan together, like just for that. And giving myself permission. I like to have fun, but giving my precision, just the permission to have fun, to go out there and, you know what, for those of you who know me, climb another warp wall. Hopefully I won't fall off this time, but, just do those wild and just crazy things that I enjoy. So I would say that's personally, professionally, it would still be creating those boundaries and having that space for no. I would like to look into a certification somewhere along the lines of coaching. I do informal and formal mentoring now, but I want to make sure that I have the skill set to back that up as well.
Love that. Joseph?
Well, I want to go back and give one small pat on the back to our university and thinking about the next generation. We were the first med school to incorporate and work with NAMI on mental health training for our students. And so thinking about that next generation of physicians and other medical professionals being able to help work with their patients and clients and understanding mental health and understanding their own is really important. So that's been a really great thing we've done for the last several years. And I think leads the way on things. I spent most of this year being really intentional about setting boundaries and learning to set boundaries and giving myself permission to do that. It was very difficult as a person who believes anybody who reaches out should get a response and should get an immediate response, and I should see them in person and have coffee and all those things. And so it was hard, but at the same time, really rewarding to give myself that ability to carve out those boundaries. I think in next year, two things. One, give myself even more permission to do the things that I love and want to do, like Renika was saying. This is the first job I've had in my entire career that's had no travel. And so it's interesting to now only travel because I want to travel and only go to the places that I choose to go and not tack on other travel because I'm already in X place. So that part will be fun. And then spend more time kind of doing work in my own research and writing and facilitation and just kind of doing some of those things that are passion projects.
I feel like that just from your 5 responses, those that are listening in could come up with their own laundry list, just taking from yours of places to really focus for growth and health. As you think about the year that is to come, from your perspective, what would you say is at least one critical conversation that leaders of a team or of an organization need to have in the year to come with their teams or with their colleagues as leaders? What is a topic that you see on the horizon or not so far away that is going to improve the output, effectiveness, or culture of a team if they brought the topic to the table?
I
One
would say,
topic. Oh, go ahead. I
go
don't
ahead.
want to.
Go
Go
on,
ahead.
Justin.
I was just trying to break the ice. One topic that I think is top of mind for me, just from a technology standpoint, is AI. I think that's something that many people are already using in their personal lives, myself included. And nonprofits have that responsibility, I think, an obligation to look at that and see where are there opportunities to help support what we're already doing, make sure it's done ethically and responsibly, and be part of that from the beginning. So I'm really excited because I love technology and working smarter, not harder. And I think with nonprofits, we're often tasked to do more with less. So what can we do to leverage technology like AI to automate things so we can focus more on the community and the members and the volunteers who, by the way, I think we all are that on this call. And you were talking about boundaries and time. And I agree with you. I echo that as well. I'm going to add that to my list for next year goals. Because then we can focus on the strategy or delivering that, wonderful experience to those people who dedicate their time, money, and passion to fulfill our missions. So that's something that I know is also exciting for people. I think people love technology, and there's some people who don't, and there's a change management. There's a hesitation to it, or people think their jobs are at risk. So, looking at it from all those angles, like we all shared when we look at things strategically and holistically. But that's something that I'm excited about. And I heard Reggie Henry recently from ASA said, he's been doing this technology for a long time. And he finally found something where he's extremely passionate about it and hasn't been this excited in his career as to with AI. So I would say, let's jump on that wagon. Let's work together as a community to see what can we do to leverage that responsibly, ethically, and serve our community. So that's what's top of mind for me.
Love that. Others, what do you think is a critical conversation that needs to be had by our organizations or our teams? Joseph, did I see you on mute?
Yeah, because I want to continue that because I was thinking the same thing. Because I love the possibilities and I love what it does for freeing up time and allowing people to work at a higher, more strategic level. Of course, we've been having ongoing conversations in our world a lot about this because on the administrative side or the staff side, it makes perfect sense. But on the academic side, well, then there's a question mark. And so I love what Hasana said about making sure we're doing things ethically and approaching things correctly. I think one of the things that affects organizations in a bigger way is making sure that we understand what is fact-based information. And so as we embrace more AI, making sure that the information we're gathering and the things that we're using or things we're getting from other people is actually accurate, because that could become problematic too. So I think having these conversations and having them regularly and keeping each other updated is really important amongst the organizations, but also internal to the organization.
Love that. I was on a web learning with Beth Azee the other day, who was showing us not just, of course, AI generators that can generate, for instance, an essay for a student, but the separate AI tool that takes what AI generates and humanizes it so that it can't be tracked as AI generated language. Right? So where the ethics of lines, very interesting.
Yeah, and to that point, actually, that's one thing I was gonna say, because I too am also on the AI bandwagon of like, let's see what we can do to make things more efficient and effective and make it easier for us to have headspace and set our boundaries. But for any of that to be successful, you have to start with the like, what's the governance around that? Like, what are the rules that everyone needs to play within so that then you can let people go experiment and find new ways to do things. But without that, it can become really unwieldy. So I think that's an important thing to have at the baseline and have that starting point where that conversation is had by leadership to determine what are the guidelines that we're going to put in place so that everybody's aware and they know when to use it, when not to use it, how to use it. and make sure that that information is disseminated at the organizational level. Really important. It's not fun stuff, but it has to happen.
Yeah, that's
I
foundational.
mean, I'm gonna add to that a component, which is the real fear that people have is that they will lose their jobs with AI, that particularly at the lower level. And so the conversation that managers and CEOs need to have is a serious dialogue about what's going to happen to those positions that might be helped by AI, but also might feel like they could be replaced by AI. And having the courage to have those conversations, I think, is going to be something we're going to need in the next couple years. But that actually, I'm just adding to the conversation here. That's not the point I wanted to make. I have a different point, which is I have been very concerned about some of the return to work folks. I get the feeling sometimes that that returning to the office is more about not knowing how to manage effectively in an online world, and the sunk cost of real estate. That you're tied into a 10-year lease and you can't get rid of it, so you got to use it. And I think for me, the courageous conversation there is how do you manage and supervise effectively in a virtual space, which really is a conversation about deliverables, not observation, because that was what it was in the pre-COVID times. It was watching people. Like you just walked around and saw, oh, you're good, you're at work, great. And you could show up at the office and not do any work, but you were physically there, so it looks like you're working. Versus thinking for each position, what's the deliverables? What do we expect? What's the pace? That's the conversation that leaders need to have, and that could help encourage some CEOs who have moved more to in the office to go to the hybrid remote, because flexibility is what people want. At the end of the day, associations struggle with retention of employees, but one of the things we could offer is flexibility. But you can't be flexible if you insist on people coming into the office. Mm-hmm. So that's the courage I would love to see CEOs, C-suite, and top tier managers having in their organizations.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just excited about what you said.
Yes, I'm incredibly excited. It plays into what I was thinking along the lines of accountability, because so often after the pandemic, we have these conversations about, well, people, were they more productive in the office? They felt the need to be more accountable. So really checking in on goals. And also, it's important for us as leaders to state our intentions. You've got to tell people what your expectation is, what you want, what you're looking for. What does if you're turning in a board report, what does an appropriate report look like? And also being okay to walk them through the process and say, hey, this didn't quite meet the expectations, and this is how we can shift and adjust. When I look at 2024, there are so many new systems that are in place, so much AI that can supplement the jobs that we do. One, be accountable to have the conversation to say, yes, I know AI is out there. And like someone mentioned earlier, this is how we can use it, or even maybe encourage our staff to use it and say, hey, maybe you should try this. Try bouncing, some of these concepts off, with whatever AI platform you're interested in. But you have to have the conversation, and you have to be accountable to following through with that conversation, because that's where I think the growth is to be had.
I'm watching the clock, so we're quickly in a few moments going to get to our final question of what piece of advice you would give for successful 2024 that I'll ask each of you to give. To give you a chance to think of that, the pre-question I'll just ask is that as you think about this past year, are there any new sources of perspective or information that you're consuming? New podcasts, new watch lists, new places you're reading, subscriptions, any interesting places where you feed your own self that you'd give a recommendation for someone else to tune in?
I'll just add that anything organizational psychology or just psychology related podcasts are like totally the only thing I listen to outside of work. So trying to figure my own brain out, I think, is where I lead, and how else I can help others with that as well. So, Hidden Brain, Shankar Vedantam is an awesome one. Work Life, Adam Grant, that's another amazing one. These are all very mainstream ones, but they're some faves of mine.
Like both of those. Anyone else?
I definitely concur with those two. Mine have been doing something really oddly intentional as well, which is finding people who think differently than I do and have different perspectives on things, particularly if they are disagreeing with some of the perspectives I take on things. And so looking for those individuals I can build real relationships with, but then also kind of have those conversations about difficult topics.
Say for me, Simon Sinek's A Bit of Optimism podcast. The news is difficult, right? Like I both feel I cannot stick my head in the sand and avoid the world where I'm trying to raise and keep safe children. On the other hand, I find it hard to read the news and not want to stick my head in the sand. And so a podcast that is about a little bit of optimism and bringing that positive in has been something that has brought joy in moments to listening to.
Y'all are so serious with your podcasts. All I listen to are RuPaul's Drag Race podcasts. I mean, that is my self-care. Is anything RuPaul's Drag Race. That's what I watch on YouTube. That's what I watch on Instagram when I when I need to turn my brain off, because sometimes I don't want to think all the time. Like I don't want to listen to, like, I appreciate all these great podcasts. That's my job. I don't need to do that. And I'm not paid. But I'll tell you where I'm gonna promote what I do for fun, which is I really enjoy looking at street art. And so I always go into new cities and I look for street art. I kind of scope neighborhoods and I go check it out, because it always takes me off the beaten path, usually behind alleys, and and in areas that tourists may not go to, is a polite way of saying it. But I always find something interesting. I've actually found a few that I'm using in therapy and in my work and in my presentations. And so, and it's a way to see how young artists are kind of seeing the world. This is art that is accessible to everyone. So I find that really interesting.
Very good.
I don't know how we're doing on time, but I'll echo what you said about unplugging, and I watch Reality Housewives or any reality shows. I probably watch them all, and I echo a lot of the other comments too. But I also, on another note, I also follow a lot of the individuals on this call, whether they know it or not, and I'm also seeking, expertise in areas that I'm not an expert in, or volunteering too. That feeds my soul, just with the Hispanic community. And I do a lot of work with Nabil and others there, and recognizing each other. So those are some of the ways that feed my soul. Or, like, to Nabil's point, I watch Reality Housewives to unplug and just relax. So
love that. Well, I am watching the time, and so I will bring it to our unfortunate closing question. Question's not unfortunate, just the time has gone by so quick. Which is, I'd love to hear from each of you, if possible, as you think about the leaders, aspiring, established, that are listening in to our panel, to our discussion. What's a key piece of advice you would give to leaders of teams, of organizations, for a successful 2024? From your perspective, what piece of advice would you give to colleagues who are leading? And we'll go, if you're ready, I'm going to go in reverse order from how we started, so that I give equal parity to the alphabetical ordering. Which, Ranika, that means you go first. Sorry, not sorry.
No worries. So I would say have fun. Again, we spend a lot of time at work, and you have to find something in your day-to-day that is truly fun. And so with our team, I've tried to intentionally, even though some of them were there before me, interview them to see what gives them joy in that work-related space, and to make sure that I'm very intentional about making sure that's connected with their goals, so that you don't just do the day-to-day, you also get to do those highlighted areas. So have fun.
Perfect. Dana?
Yes, I am going to go full circle back to how we started and just say over communicate, transparency, and lead with humor. I think those are like the most important things to continue to move the needle.
Love it. Joseph?
I'm gonna say the same thing that I've been telling myself all year, which is trust the process. Especially if you've engaged in something and you've been a part of a group or part of a leadership strategy, and you said this is where we're going to go. Trust that you'll get there and don't overthink it.
I love that. Asana?
I echo everything that everyone said, and I guess lead with authenticity, because I think relationship building is what it's all about in the day to day. So if you bring your authentic self to work and share that with others, and I know some people are reserved and like to be private, but the more you open up different parts of your personality, the more you can relate with others and create that safe space. So I echo everything else, but that would be one suggestion I have.
And Nabil?
My suggestion for a successful 2024 is to stay centered and stay grounded. I have a feeling 24 is going to be very stormy. And I think as leaders, the more grounded and centered you are, which is components of having fun, communicating well, modeling. So a lot of the aspects, but also really taking care of yourself and your needs will help you lead your team. Because when you're not centered, when you are, rising and falling with the stormy seas, it's not going to help your team.
And I would say, close out, my advice would be to do what we succeeded in doing here today, which is to find brilliant people and spend time with them, whether that's brilliance of the mind, brilliance of the heart, brilliance of the soul, so that hopefully your interactions lift your own self up for the community that you build around you. Thank you to all 5 of you for coming back and sharing not just once but twice this year with our community, and for helping to build it and lead it into the future. And to everyone who has tuned in, if you're listening before the new year, we hope that the end of this year brings you much health and much happiness, and that the year ahead is one where we find you in a successful, healthy, resilient, humor-filled, happy role as we build a community together here in Rockstars. Want to take a moment just to thank Amy Hager, who throughout the entire year and years of Rockstars has been a partner in building this, and we cannot do it without her. And thank you to all the Rockstars we've had. Everyone have a wonderful end of the year, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.